There are 3 games before Hades: Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre. If you came for the Bastion ramble, it's literally the only one I haven't played. I am so sorry. But to console you, I have played a metric ton of Pyre and Transistor. Thus begins my dive into the beautiful agony of these stories, and the vice grip that they have on me, body and soul. Major spoilers, by the way, like full game spoilers. When I was a tween, I stumbled upon a niche playthrough of a new, interesting little game, following the story of Red, a singer and her unnamed lover who, while protecting Red from her adversaries, was stabbed by a sword, and had his consciousness transferred over into it as a result. Although sword, dear listener, is one term, the technical term for it is transistor. These two's plight and romance are enveloped in every aspect of this game, beginning with Red pulling the transistor out of her lover's chest, his voice echoing through the machinery instead of his mouth, now dripping with blood. Even though he's inside the transistor, where he's colloquially known as Mr. Nobody, or alternatively by the fandom, Sword Boyfriend, her beloved demonstrates a raw level of warmth through his guiding tones and soft comments, unaffected, of course, by Logan Cunningham giving Sword Boyfriend this voice.
Look, whatever you're thinking, do me a favor. Don't let me go. I think I'm okay. There's something out there. At the towers. I can feel it. You see it out there, punch it right in the nose for me, will you? If it's got a nose.
In some dialogue, he sounds a little loopy for a story reason, and it's really sad, but also really cute.
That's my star. Could always handle yourself. Just fine. You know that, right? It's true. It's true. It's true.
He follows you throughout the game, and Red, who had her voice stolen from her because of their adversaries, responds through nonverbal gestures. She slips the coat off of his old body and drapes it onto herself, a makeshift warmth in place of him. Text on a screen as she types frantically in response to his vocal queries. A hug so deeply entrenched in agony. A stab in the heart. They live in a cloud bank, literally, like the cloud of the internet. Sci-fi is fun. It's being ravaged by their adversaries, and unsurprisingly, the city wasn't that great to begin with. A monotony that festered. There could be change, there could be revolution and beauty, like the small uprisings that Red brought about with her songs. Yet, unlike the heroic triumphs one might expect, the city is not salvageable. It can be restored, yes, but only in architecture. Perfect walls and shops and streets. But there's no saving the people who faced against machines. They simply just get stored in the transistor. There's a loneliness at the end of the game, knowing that Red, this vibrant, brilliant human being, is left with a world that can't satiate her, holding cold metal that was once a warm body. So she lays down where her lover's corpse was left behind, transistor at her disposal, and joins him in the rich world hidden inside the metal sword, of which the game aptly calls the country. The way her lover panics, begs her not to, and his voice fades away to her resplendent singing, the music swelling and swelling as you see their lives unfold prior to the game, and at the end of it all, at its crescendo, you hear... I reacted very normally to this. I think about the long stretches where these illustrations, crafted in part by Gen Z, the art director of Supergiant games, are animated and brought to life, gazing out into a corrupted city, sitting and eating pizza, falling together. Even in the delightful absurdity of its plot, it's all so real. There's some interesting little intricacies that transfer over to Hades too, like rest points where you get a little bit of dialogue reflecting on current circumstances within the game, such as when Red leaves to quickly wash up, for example, or the isometric viewpoint the game's camera is at. In a way, every game after this feels like coming home on winter break, resting up against an old fireplace that relights itself with new vigor. Additionally, one of the villains of the story appears like this, within this teeny tiny TV, looking like he's asking for games on your phone. It's great. Speaking of great, I would be remiss not to mention that the music is stellar. Unsurprisingly, this is a trend in Supergiant games. If you love the singing in Hades, I cannot stress how fundamental of a shift Transistor's music had on me. I would spend hours learning each and every note, and the songs followed my development into becoming a better person, more aware of the world around me, of the changes that I could advocate for. In fact, I got so into it that I sang the iconic song in the game, We All Become, in front of an embarrassingly large group of parents and peers. It was a really pivotal moment for me. The songs in this game, the messaging, the story, helped me through some disturbing lows. And here I am, changed. Ashley Barrett and Darren Korb, how dare you perpetuate this trend of making me lose my mind over a mind-blowing video game bop? This will only get worse with Pyre. On top of that, I've been doodling Transistor for forever. I remember drawing Red and Sword Boyfriend for a silly little art class competition where I fought to the death with a person who copied a drawing from a random animated place, and we both won candy, so it all worked out, but I love drawing these two. I even own a Transistor pin made by Kitty Analyst. It's so gorgeous. Oh! And I finally got to play the game for myself once I had an income, which is all to say that from that middle school moment on, I kept a close eye on these developers. And their next game was Pyre, the true middle child of the Supergiant catalog, neglected by most who opt for the faster stories of Bastion and Transistor, or by those who go for the routine thrills of Hades. Yet its story and craft holds a wonder that is brilliant to behold. There is a richness to each world that Supergiant creates, and the fantasy of Pyre has lore so deep that it has an entire goddamn book in the game telling you about it. As such, it comes at no surprise that Pyre holds stories to the highest level of importance, especially since, if you hoard any books in your hands, they will be burned. Because in this world, literacy, the unfettered, unregulated access to knowledge, is a crime. And it's not the only unfair principle upheld, because the country of the Commonwealth is built on control. The Commonwealth was created almost a millennium prior to the start of the game, after the previous empire was overthrown, approximately, give or take, 837 years ago, to be exact. Its rulers say that it promotes unity and mercy, yet it divides its citizens by the way they act, incentivizes snitching on those who believe that different religious structures, those who show mercy to the Commonwealth's foes, the harpies on the other side of the war-torn blood border, those that deviate and say that the history that the Commonwealth heavily regulates, the violence that it cultivates, the news that it heavily censors, is not the only truth. How could they believe that such a fair, beautiful, perfect nation could not be real? If you are someone who fails to uphold these principles, these true, righteous wants, then you are cast down where you deserve to be, the desolate wasteland of the downside, where all who betray the Commonwealth shall rot. And it is a mercy, is it not? For it is a life sentence for a new life. You are one such person, cast out for your crimes, your accumulation of knowledge you weren't supposed to obtain. Books carefully curated now turn to soot. Aren't you, dear reader? The language that readers within this world practice is, to my knowledge, straight up English. It's basically the Latin of this world, dead to all but the very few who keep it alive. The actual tongue that the Pyre common folk speak is bits and pieces of different languages. For example, I found out that Noxalis, the thing that your group, the Nightwings, say when they win, is their team name. Nox meaning night and alas meaning wings. Man, ooh, that's so cool. The variety in the story is kinda nuts. It truly did pave the way for future dialogue functions in their games, because I did 4 separate playthroughs of Pyre to get all of the options I felt satisfied with. In fact, there's a specific component to Pyre's gameplay loop that destroyed me so much that I literally had to take a break for a year before coming back and completing the story. 4 fucking times. Okay, the best way to describe this to Hades lovers. You know in Hades where you have the Codex, a book that gives you more information about characters, locations, and weapons the more you interact with, explore, or use said components of the game? This is a staple in Supergiant's games, at least from my experience with Transistor, and the same can be said for Pyre. You, as a reader, are able to decipher an ancient book in the downside that outlines how you and your scrappy crew can go back up to the Commonwealth and be free once more. There's only one way out, and it's by participating in the rites, where 3 of your companions toss a ball into your opponent's fire to snuff out their flames. It's esports, but it's fantasy esports, and as such, mechanics are described in fantasy terms to make sense within the world, which is something Supergiant always does, and I love to see it. It just makes it so much more fun. The origins behind the rites, written out in this ancient book you possess, is that a group of people from the previous empire named the Scribes gave up their freedom from the downside, and instead created these rites so that others could earn their freedom instead. They slew titans to make the downside a hospitable place, so that one can face their repentance more easily. And it is upon these titans' carcasses that you face your opponents. As you arise to the Commonwealth they dream of, they imagine that you will bring these teachings of mercy, of repentance, of unity with you, and create a better world. But will returning to the Commonwealth you know bring your companions what you desire? I do wonder. The reason I suffered so much within the game, the mechanic that made me avoid it halfway through for over a year, is that the rites are coming to an end. Characters within the game speculate why, whether the Scribes are angry, whether your companions have crossed them somehow, whether the rites will come back long after you are dead. But what this means for the player is that there are only so many people you can get out. And if you fail at the end of each cycle during one of the Ascension rites, those that bring you up towards the Commonwealth, then one of your opponents ascends to the Commonwealth instead. Oh no. For a peep who's plagued by indecision on an unfortunately frequent basis, this was a lot of pressure. Even with the reassurances by the game that if you fail any of the trials, that your story will continue, and it will. I cared about these characters throughout my journey, not just my own little group, but some of the opponent groups as well. You can see the way most yearn for a better world. If you let different characters ascend up at different times, you also get completely different dialogue based on who stays behind in the downside. And when you let a character go, you lose out on some of that interaction, which makes you feel incredible agony. I'm talking about me. I'm you. I was in agony. The writing is really good at giving you just enough information to make you care, with each character having their own arcs based on which opponents you face off against, and their own ways of referring to each other with nicknames, including you, the reader. This is also something that happens in Hades as well. I love the nickname stuff. It makes me so giddy. There's even special case dialogue depending on if your character left early and their opponent team recognizes it, or if a certain character is chosen for each rite. How do you write this much? I found myself swept up in the way everyone interacts, because the formation of bonds is at the heart of this game. I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of names. I cannot guarantee you will remember any of them, and that's okay. I only remember because I'm addicted. If you want to avoid all the in-depth character details, saving it for your own gameplay, you can skip to the revolution portion. Hedwyn, Jodariel, and Ruki are the first three that aided you after you were cast down into the downside. But they certainly are not the only characters I discuss, because everyone has an impact. And what impacts me are not just the heightened moments between groups, but the downtime in between every rite, where you and your companions explore the world around you and huddle in your wagon to chat. It's in one of these chats that Hedwyn reveals that he was cast down as a deserter of his military squad because he was in love with the Harpy girl from the other side of the Commonwealth's war. The way he cooks food for everyone merrily and is warm to every person he meets, including a separate but relevant Harpy you recruit to your team, all exudes kindness. And it's with that kindness that he makes a promise that you hope you can keep. He wants you, himself, and the two other downsiders that saved you to all escape together. There's this little scene where you both are cooking, and he rambles about how he first met his beloved Harpy Fikani on the war-torn border, with her telling him that he should value his life, and him saying that it was worth the risk, the tentative way that he describes that he was usually never this bold or unfiltered, and yet in doing so he got to run off, or more accurately was picked up by her, so they flew off together for a few precious days. His loyalty to her is what makes him persevere. And God, he's so dateable. He's so dateable. He's the perfect man. They're both so cute. Look at her little sprite. She's gorge. No wonder I'm trying to date who I'm trying to date in Hades too, huh? Oh Lord, teach, date pretty people with wings. Ah, shit, that's too many characters. The Harpy girl you recruit, Pamitha, if you keep her and Hedwyn around long enough, have a special dialogue where he brings up how he longs for Fikani, and Pamitha goes, Fikani? Fikani Shang? That's a Harpy name? And he goes, you know her? And she goes, how many Harpies do you think are left after the Commonwealth murdered our sisters? Of course I do! Apparently Hedwyn spent a solid fucking week in the gorge with Fikani after they flew off together. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. The drama. She also has some interesting lore about the origins of Harpies and humans, revealing that Harpies all call each other sisters because there's this supposedly only one elusive prince of the Harpies left, after all that the Commonwealth did to dwindle their numbers, which Pamitha doesn't even fully believe in, this prince, but the hierarchy of the Harpies certainly does. Pamitha is also trying to mend a relationship with her sister, who is also trapped in the downside, because Pamitha warned the Commonwealth that her sister was planning an attack in exchange for her sister's safety, which the Commonwealth appreciated. And then they turned around, clipped the sisters' wings, and sent them both to the downside. Because they pride mercy. I find that her arc really hit me with a steel chair. I'm so glad I separated her from her sister in most of my playthroughs, because Pamitha chasing after her as a way to repent and apologize was like looking in a mirror of self-destructive guilt-tripping as someone who was once very people-pleasy. Sometimes you mess up badly enough that people don't want to bridge that gap with you anymore. Sometimes you're the recipient of a mess up and don't want to bridge that gap. It's how it goes. Not good or bad. It's genuinely just what some people's boundaries are. And when you don't accept the situation, it festers. She also has okay, hear me out on this, indescribably gay relationship with Jodariel. Jodariel was a captain on the Blood Border, exiled because she found a group of fledgling Harpies and didn't have the heart to kill them. Man, what is up with the Commonwealth? Is this how you treat veterans? What's next? You gonna try and unconstitutionally pause all federal funding? Huh? Like a little bitch? She was a mother to Hedwyn and countless other orphan children when they were all on the blood border, and at first she refuses to work with Pamitha. The wounds of being cast down because she spared harpies had not healed yet. But in a, at least in my opinion, suspiciously off-screen scene where like you and the gang are searching for these two for hours after they have an argument, they both come back to the wagon agreeing to work together, with Pamitha saying something like, "Well, I'm not sure I fixed things, reader darling, but I do think we've resolved something." How? What? Hello? This isn't even the only scene with Jodi that I was Vine Boom sound effecting at. Like, what is this? Wow, her and her rival must have had a really good game of checkers. Genuinely though, this is super sweet. I love their interactions. She threatens to punch him in the mouth for one of them. But when I was trying to support Jodi in pursuing this relationship, it creates a dialogue option where she says that while she cares about you, dear reader, she doesn't want to date you. And I respect it, but that was not what I was trying to communicate. It does sting though, because I was just trying to hype you up, and suddenly I learned that I got 0 game. Thankfully, when there was a similar scene with two completely separate characters, there was no dialogue option, just me staring at the screen, thinking to myself, interesting. A lot of characters really love playing checkers. Side note, these two are gorgeous, and when this scene came up, I was shouting, "I knew it!" while pointing at them on my laptop screen for like a solid minute. To the Nightwing's dismay, I'm sure. Jodariel also has a maternal relationship with a vagabond girl you meet, aka my sweet, stunning, wonderfully neurodivergent girlie. When this game first came out, I was substantially younger than her, but now I'm 2 years older than her, and that's wild. Oh, time is weird. She doesn't have a set name because she was called many names during her time in the Commonwealth, mocked for her oddities and eccentricities, so you actually choose her name. And in classic Supergiant fashion, every one of these names has flavor text and uniquely voiced dialogue where her name is spoken. I went with Faye and Mae. There was also an option to name her, because it's all like AE ending names, Gay. I think the term, the like flavor text was like, this must have been what they called to make fun of her. Damn, she's just like me. She's just like me for real. But there's also like Bae too. And I think the flavor text was, this one can't possibly be right. Can it? We'll stick with Faye the Fair and Mae the Moon-Touched. To be known as Moon-Touched is to be seen as unfitting within society. She is described as a savage in the eyes of the Commonwealth because people saw her knowledge about the scribes and the unique way of speaking that she has as off. And after a while, no one took her in. And since she had nowhere to go, the judges said that she shall find company in the downside, where the scribes will guide her. They tossed her into the Downsides River 2 years ago. They exiled a, at the time, 17-year-old girl alone into an uninhabitable landscape for not fitting in. It genuinely filled a rage and sorrow in me to see the way her sentence is described in such disturbingly plain terms. And when she describes it all to Jodariel, Faye sees her past struggles to survive as another test, another way of living ordained by the scribes. Because at least in the downside, everyone is alone in some way. It hurts, but no longer, for when she is enveloped in the warm hug that Jodi gives her, in it there's the tenderness of someone who knows the true lengths of what this girl has suffered. And in that moment, she is seen. I'm in love with the sillier, Slightly absurd stories that lighten the tone too, I promise, like those of Sir Gilman, a worm knight who fights for his honor in uproarious ways. He's just a silly little guy. Rookie with his trickster-esque trading schemes, owing a debt to an opponent you face, Bertrude, a bog crone, basically a witch, who runs a shop in the downside. Her character arc of learning multiple loves exists, let's go! Or last but not least, although certainly the tiniest, little imp T-Zone, who's lived for a long-ass time, seeing the previous group of Nightwings and talking in screeches. You literally hover over his screeches to understand what he's saying. It's so cute. But even then, they all have their own elements that add greater depth. A veteran of war, a frail mother at home who needs funding, being cast down for illegally creating fireproof materials for a printing press. The horror of seeing your found family fall apart as your old friend who mended your horn is pushed off the edge of a mountain where he should have ascended back up to the Commonwealth. It was his right. He had prevailed in the rights. And yet... The first three you meet have so many cute little interactions. The hesitancy that Jodi has when Hedwyn deals with the sea for the first time, the drinks they all share together, them joking about Rookie struggling to put on his mask for your first ascension rite ever. It's so cute and homey and comfortable, and God, if I send these people back to the Commonwealth, I may never see them again. But there is a reason to send your companions to the Commonwealth, because the mastermind of your group has a goal: to form a just government. And if you get enough of your group into the Commonwealth, with enough collaboration and diligence, perhaps your Nightwings shall help it come to fruition. Wolfred Sandalwood is an interesting little tree, man. I want to shake him in a bottle, for he is also a reader, one who served the previous group of Nightwings, cast down for his spread of anti-Commonwealth knowledge via stamping press, using Bertrude's fireproof materials to prevent his works from being easily set aflame. Yet he does not wish to go back up himself. No, instead, he wants to help those that are already there, in the Commonwealth and downside alike. Everyone was brought downside in some way. Suffering and learning that to suffer with what you have been given is not the only option. You can keep going. In fact, some would say that's inevitable, that the stars have spoken it into being, and you shall simply do what you shall. The little details in the flavor text truly uproot me. The descriptions of star signs aligning perfectly with how characters and opponents act. The sing-song delivery of their stories, tucked in pages, like a hymn from a bard. A personal favorite among the rival interactions are between Almer and Mae. Almer and his adoptive dog father Dalbert were both cast down 5 years ago. First, because Dalbert sang a religious song that the Commonwealth didn't approve of about the scribes, and secondly, because Almer defended his father. Wow, I love tossing a helpless teen into a place where they probably are built to not survive in. This sounds real familiar. But yes, they're so cute. Oh, it's a sun and moon dynamic where Mae is super cheerful and kind, wanting to befriend Almer in awkwardly sweet tones, always reminiscing about him, and Almer is just really confused and concerned about her. One of my favorite little interactions is when his dad, Dalbert, comments on her, saying that she's quite odd. And he, agrees. Almer's agreeing with him. And then Dalbert just says, she's about your age. Father! He already knows the deal. He already has a plan. We've been working together to get these two set up, alright? The ascension rite between them is so warm. Faye just takes off her mask and cheers Almer on, saying that she believes in him, and I can't. They're so cute. I had to keep them together, okay? I ascended them together so hard. Do not separate. It's sad too, in a way, because Dalbert is older and he chooses not to ascend, so Almer can instead experience a life in the Commonwealth instead of his dog dad, and it makes me so sad. My boys, my babs. They really all have a vice grip on me, especially because Faye and Almer are both people who, when in the Commonwealth together, write down and speak about the knowledge that they've gained, with Faye becoming a saint and Almer a historian. These two people who were tossed out for being considered savages now hold a place of reverence and historical importance. It's just such a dense and fruitful experience. In that same vein, remember when I mentioned that this little imp guy, Tizo, had a friend that fell off from a cliff and lost his chance at ascending to the Commonwealth? I know you probably don't, there's so many characters. That guy is dead, right? Orlek is very alive and very spiteful, and the final ascension rite is one hell of a throwdown against him. I find his lore quite fascinating. A doctor on the blood border who, when not wanting to participate in the war, was tossed aside. Much like when he was tossed down the fucking mountain. He has a soft spot for Tizo and truly does care, but also despises the new Nightwings, yearning for the chance to ascend to the Commonwealth once more. In particular, he holds a major grudge against Wolfred, his old companion in the previous Nightwings group. And I have to tell you that after 4 playthroughs of hearing Wolfred yap on about he aches for the relationship he used to have with him and the agony surrounding Orlek, at some point you just want them to shut up and kiss so you can have some silence. This toxic, doomed yaoi needs a major therapy sesh. Orlek's relation to you, the reader, also has me in a tizzy. There's this scene where your group has all left the wagon because they've spotted him and want to keep an eye out in case he tries anything. So, of course, when you enter the wagon for respite alone, there's a terrible sensation. It's an invasion of space, your space, and yet this wagon too was once his home, alongside the man that he spites. Every playthrough, this shit unnerved me so bad. But you can also see that he holds the reader in a sort of reverence, knowing that you, as someone who conducts the rites, have a very slim chance of ever escaping the downside yourself. You, as you grow into your role, also gain insights into other people's thoughts, something that you cannot fully control, but do hone as the game continues, like seeing the sharp contrast between Pamitha's internal frustrations, telling you to get out of her head, and her external, calm demeanor. With your ability to reach others, you can either manipulate Orlek into getting what you want, or show him that his old group truly did care for him, that Wolfred genuinely regrets what happened, wishing he could have prevented it. And if you lose the final right against him, reach out to him and explain. He yields his freedom to you. There's something about being granted your freedom by him, being wrapped in the water's anointing light, as you have worked towards achieving for all of your companions that you could, where he realizes that happiness does not await him in any one place. No, but in his mindset and the people he chooses to keep around him. And the ending can really change depending on if you manipulate him or not. It genuinely shocked me seeing what the manipulation end does, or I think also the ending where you win and ascend all on your own too. But God, there's something about the way that he picks himself up in the other endings. If he has granted to you the chance at a new life, or vice versa, if you grant him his chance, mending relationships and staying close with those he cares about, reinvigorating whatever environment he resides in, and the people around him flourish. Really, you, dear reader, become the weaver of countless fates, tied to every person in some way, just as they are tied to you. The palpable difference you make in their lives as you read the intel on the adventures of your companions or opponents as they reach the other side. the talks you witness between each and every person. Your path is yours to choose, shaped by who you are and the actions you take. For me, the most compelling is The Disabled Scholar, the presentation of a person who escapes into books to experience what they have difficulty doing in an unadaptive environment made the route feel poetically significant. The opening where you are curled in your library, burning to soot, a life sentence awaiting you, in contrast with the ending where the library is full and lush and a sparkling city is just outside its view, a city you helped create. The poeticness of it all is especially so because the justice who exiled you all to the downside can speak specially to you. And in his frustration at your growing connections, at the plan you all have hatched to create a just government, one that threatens his own position, he says this.
You are nothing, reader. Nothing but a mindless cripple. Your every action is a stain upon the legacy of the 8 scribes. The rites have been a long-held secret. To keep out those such as you.
Because how dare you? How dare you try and reach for a brighter future, as if the crumpled, tattered offerings the Commonwealth gives you are not enough. If bigots could telepathically send their thoughts to people they thought were lesser than them, they would sound like this, wouldn't they? But really, your role as a reader, a disabled scholar, adds such an interesting element to one of the deepest relationships in the game. A companion that you can completely miss interacting with, if you choose not to. There's this assassin trapped in an orb named Sandra. Her story requires conversation that, if you miss by not completing certain criteria, you can completely lose out on her ending, which I learned on my 3rd playthrough when I skimped out on her dialogue, and then proceeded to replay the entire game for her. Yeah, I know. She learned to kill alongside her sisters, and did not see that the scribes were anything but a mark, no matter how much they may have changed as people. And as a result, she was blinded and bound to the crystal with her sisters as practice dummies for your group, with them all becoming resentful after having been stuck together for 837 years. Your relationship with her is tentative, for connection is not something that she is used to retaining. After all, the point of the Nightwings of every opponent you face is that anyone she meets does not want to stay with her for long. And yet, you linger. You push through every barrier she has, stay with her a little longer than she expects, and she cannot take it. She pushes you away, states that she knows more about you than you have ever spoken aloud. You are a reader who yearns for freedom, disabled and wishing for a brighter future. You wouldn't want someone like her near you, no. Until, on the eve of the last rite, she calls for you, asks a favor in her echoing, enchanting voice, to take her with you. The rites have faded, and while her sisters were bound by weaker ties, allowed to fade with them, she is not. So, if she is going to be in this crystal any longer, at least it would be nice to have your companionship, lovely reader. The bad end, as I would call it, is so distressing and disturbing to read that I genuinely don't know who would pick this option and not immediately go back to their previous save, because it hurts. You deny her the opportunity to be near you, to explore the world in your care, and she just cuts off all ties, saying that she thought, for what it was worth, that her quest was not risking much. And yet you have lost the connection you worked so hard to build because you didn't take a chance. And the crystal goes inert. It fucked me up, by the way. Oh my god. But the happy ending. I cannot describe how romantic this felt. the way she stumbles through explaining that she cannot give much outside of lulling you to sleep, half-pleasant dreams, her need for companionship that she tries to restrain in quiet hope for what you will say, and yet hope is a feeling that I absolutely flourished with the moment that our dear reader describes the relationship as lascivious to lighten the mood post-ending. By the way, this is what lascivious means. Cracked me up really bad. And after it, she's putting the crystal into the ruffles of her robes. Safe. Genuinely, it makes me want to cry. It's so good. It's wonderful. The way connections strengthen us, lets us build on our mistakes and triumphs through our bonds, makes it so that we can improve the lives of not just others, but ourselves, because we all deserve it. The Commonwealth thrives in dividing people, while also hypocritically saying that it supports unity and equality, with its diversity of fantasy races that form its citizenship. The structures that they use to cast people into the downside are also structures they support whenever downsiders are sent back up top. For if you ascend, you are adorned in livery, given hush money and status as a way to hide the Commonwealth's hypocrisy, and have the cycle continue all over again. Supported by the people who were originally shunned by the system in the first place. The best example I can think of is the Archjustice Androbolis IX, or as Wilfred knows him, Brighton. He's the voice that speaks to you, a downsider, a reader who, once he ascended back to the Commonwealth, had the position, the power to change things for the better, improve the so-called justice the Commonwealth justified when they tossed children, curious eyes, kind souls down, down, down. And yet, because he has been given status and privilege, he kept it all. The same system that casted you down, turned your precious papers to ash, for he was the one that granted you your sentence, dear reader. This is truer to life than we'd like to think, when you are only thinking about yourself. It's a facade of mercy, and for some of the enemies you face, for some of the triumvirates who are cast down rightfully for their corruption, mercy seems like a crime. For if you can profit off of others' suffering, then you can almost pretend you weren't the cause of it, in your lavish life, just separated from those who you use as stepping stones. It's by now that you've realized, dear listener, yes, you, that the revolutionary part of my title was a bit more literal than you had presumed. Hello, it wasn't supposed to go this way, but unsurprisingly, hell has opened up again, so here we are. I just can't stop winning. Aw, dang it. The strength of Pyre's various revolutionary endings lies not in a single person. If the music in Pyre has taught me anything, you are stronger together. The common folk are able to bring incredible change when we build each other up. It may seem insignificant, but that's the point. If those in power can make you feel small, if they can tell you that you are someone unworthy of your humanity, then the powerlessness you feel is to their benefit. Pockets lined with your blood, sweat, and tears, your labor and strength all whisked away for them, their troves of cash they build up as if on a pyre. If their violence can limit your knowledge, make you afraid, exhausted, hinder your curiosity to learn, to persevere, then they believe that they have won, that they will always win, their money engorging their souls. But there's another side to this coin, no? I know you yearn for it, the resplendent pleasures of life, the warmth of the sun, the kindness of a stranger, the joy in learning something you enjoy doing, work that feels meaningful. You are more powerful than they think. And local change means more than you know. Small, small steps or big, whichever you feel ready for, creates ripples across our pond. I'll leave links for whatever feels appropriate to mention, and you, as a human who also has a say, can put your corrections or suggestions up as well. Just, no links because YouTube does not like that, apparently. But online, there's opportunities for donating. It could be $1. It could be more. If you look up your city and any protests or organizing that's being done, with a simple search you find a swath of communication and organization happening, groups that are forming for a just cause. But that's not the only way. No, there's always more options to choose, to figure out what sings for you, what your hands can hold. Finding your representatives for whichever place you reside in. The US is a common example. You can contact them and state your wishes so that they know what you and many others stand for. There's copy-paste messages that many people make to fight back against whatever cruel laws are trying to be passed. Take a deep breath. If you've never been to your local school board meeting, now's your chance to speak up about keeping open, caring, compassionate curriculum, accurate history, advocating for free lunches to be maintained, whatever you feel is right. And local protests are not just with words, no. You can protest with your wallet too. Take slow, simple breaths and research local shops to support what places support your beliefs, that people should not be torn apart and divided, that safety is a right. Of course, if you have the funds. And even if not, there's volunteering with your time, however small you think of it, or however large of a gap you can give. Volunteering at a food bank, at a hospital, for countless other places in your city, and even talking with friends. There's a strength in listening to people, in providing them the room to transform. And, of course, keep room for cultivating joy. We exist to create not just a better future, but a better present. Safety, kindness, warmth. You do not have to delve into the news at every waking moment. Instead, set a time. It could be every day at 6 p.m. It could be every week on a Tuesday. It could be less or more so. But do not let it engulf you, for your joy is what they fear. In their golden, tacky suits, that you have preserved your humanity through it all, through all their attempts at humiliation, at trying to make you bend your knee. You thrive, laugh, tighten the strands that you tie to others, and we shall persevere, dear listener. For here, your journey shall be. Hi! Since you've gotten to the end of this video, let me let you in on a little fun fact. So, there's no art of what your character, the reader, looks like outside of the tattered robes that, by the way, match whatever the Beyonder crystal has. Wow, the Sandra romance is always winning. But because that's the case, what ended up happening is that I just kind of drew a fantasy OC-esque version of myself. It's very rare for me to do this, especially because I much prefer pairing a character with whoever the game presents. Like in Otome games, I love iconic protagonists for this very reason. And as such, this is a really surreal experience. Self-shippers, how are you this strong? One fake, semi-fantasy version of me and suddenly I want to vomit. It's fun.